Uh-huh.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm glad that you guys are joining me on our off night. I feel like I'll probably play the slideshow again at the end because it looks like a couple of people are just joining now. So
Right.
I'll play it again and I'll replay the song maybe as we wrap this up. Maybe I actually have a longer version of the slideshow as well. So you'll see some more pictures. So again, thank you for joining me. I don't get to do this often, so I am very excited to talk about A, photography, and B, my favorite subject of photography, which is fireworks. And if you know me, you've seen some of my fireworks photos. I'm a big fan. You don't have to take screenshots of the slides. The slides are available at this link, but they are copyrighted by me, so use them for your own use. You're welcome to, but please don't, reshare them and republicize them. Okay. So let's start. Why do I photograph fireworks? Well, first of all, I love fireworks. I've always enjoyed them and they're getting better and better every day I see them. So every photo specifically with fireworks is unique. And they look to your eyes differently than what you see when you take a long exposure of a fireworks photo because it travels. It's kind of in some ways like light painting. So these two photos, for example, both taken at Busch Gardens, one before the fireworks show started, which I really like this photo. Like I actually think it's a very good photo. But then once the fireworks starts, I have a whole series of photos with different explosions of fireworks around it. And the way I see it, it's like putting jewelry on a beautiful woman. Like the photo should hold its own without a firework in it. But once you add a firework to it, it becomes one of a kind. And then you have a whole collection of one of a kind photos that really nobody can reproduce, even yourself for that matter, because the wind direction changes, the shows change. There's so many factors that affect how the firework will explode. So that's one of the big reasons I like it. Also, early on, people were like, well, what's your style and what do you do? And I'm like, how do I do something a little bit different than what everybody else does and what you can't do on the phone. So this is fireworks happens to be one thing that is hard to do on a phone. It is possible with manual settings on the phone. I will show some, I think I'll show an example of that. But it is very difficult to do on a phone. And it is actually very simple to do on a camera. You do not need an expensive camera. You do not need an expensive lens. So that was one of the reasons I got into it early on and kind of fell in love with doing it, especially because I can see the results that I can see isn't what my eyes can see when I'm watching the show. By the way, if I cover something during the talk, feel free to pause me and interrupt me so you don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. So just ask questions if you have questions, and we'll pause and explore. So, what should you bring with you when you're going to photograph fireworks? First, you need a tripod or a way to stabilize your camera, which means not forgetting your plate for your camera at home. Always carry a quarter in your bag because it's usually how you can screw a plate on tighter. So I always carry a quarter in every one of my camera bags and probably in one of my pockets. Right, I'm gonna actually share my desk for a second. I have a second camera set up over here, so let me do this real quick so I can show you a couple things. Advanced, show, second camera, share. Okay, oh, there's nothing there. So first of all, I travel with a kind of an inconspicuous looking bag. It doesn't look like a camera bag, so people don't generally know that I have expensive camera equipment in my bag. Then I have a tripod. I don't know if you guys have seen, I think I only showed it to my Nikon group. Oh, and the stuff in the bag is padded. So this protects the camera and the gear without, strangers knowing what exactly I am doing. Now, the tripod I have is compact, very, very small, but
Mhm.
stands up to my eye level. And I actually bought a little extension tube for it that screws right on, along with a mini travel head. Now I have much better heads when I'm not traveling on a plane, but this is what I bring with me when I am traveling and I want something very light and compact. So this is what I bring. Now there's one very important piece of a tripod that pretty much nobody ever talks about. Well, maybe they do sometimes talk about it, but there's a hook on the bottom of pretty sure of every tripod. And if you don't know what this hook is for, especially on tripods that are small and compact and light, it is to add additional weight. So, and it will reduce shaking. So since we're doing long, like 6 to 8, sometimes 15-second exposures, you really want your camera stable. And having, what I usually do is I literally bring like a Publix bag or Walmart bag with me, and I throw a water bottle or two in there because I'm gonna need water anyways. And I just throw it on a hook and it stays on there and it keeps my equipment a little bit more balanced. And I always have water. So that's one of the cheats that I do. I also bring a little LED light with me. Now, this one in particular, I don't fly with because it has a clamp and the clamp is a little on the heavy side. But this I can clamp to a leg of the tripod to light my setup while I'm setting up before the show. Do not use a LED light during the show because it distracts everybody who is watching the show. But it is very beneficial to do it, have it before, because it's usually dark out where you're setting up and you need to see like what you're doing while you're plugging everything in. And I also have, I think it's called Interlove. Oh my God, I'll have a spelling of it correctly, but basically it's a remote trigger. It lets me control how long the shutter is open, and I can actually manually open it, wait however long I want, and close it as the firework is going up. I will explain this a little bit more later, and it's about $13 on eBay. And then lastly, I always have a fan with me because usually when you're doing fireworks, it's hot time of the year. So it's either July 4th or sometimes it's New Year's Eve, but in Florida, even New Year's Eve can be hot. So I have a travel fan. It also has a flashlight on my travel fan. And this one clips on my belt so I can have air go on the back of my back, or I can hang it around my neck and have it blowing on me. So that's just to stay comfortable. All right, back to the slideshow. Any questions on those things, by the way?
Roman,
Yes.
are you going to like put out a list with the names of the products maybe and where we can get them? Because
I can, that's probably a good idea, but I mean, you don't have to get those specific ones, but I'm happy to show which ones exactly I do carry with me, because I did do some research on them. I have shared, I think I shared with the whole club, all the tripods I've evaluated. The tripod I showed, I only fly with because it's so small and compact. I wouldn't use it locally. If I can drive there, I have a better tripod. More stable, more reliable. So use the gear that you have to use, right? So if I'm going to be carrying it all day on my shoulder, I want the lightest stuff. If I'm going to be in my car and I just have to carry it a little bit, I'm going to bring my best one that I like, more stable, can support more weight, etc. So just to reiterate, tripod or way to stabilize your camera. It doesn't have to be a tripod. The plate, so you can attach it to your tripod. I've forgotten it once and it was very disappointing shoot. A quarter if you need to tighten it up, and use the hook on the bottom. Do bring some sort of an LED light because you'll be working in the dark. Do not use the LED light during the show. Remote shutter release will be your best friend during the show. It doesn't have to be wired. I use a wired one because it's cheap. Oh, possibly a neck or body fan. I did show that. And they also have the ones that you can put on your neck or folding chair. You will probably be sitting there for a while after you set up. So you want to shut up early. So you can find a spot without 100 people or 1,000 people in front of you, or just to scout. And then once you do find that spot, it's still probably early. So bring a folding chair if you can carry one, a small towel, a microfiber cloth. A microfiber cloth for multiple reasons. Your lens can get dirty, not just from like it usually does, but also debris can actually fall from the fireworks. And there's a lot of smoke. So, and sometimes there's rain. It's Florida. So having a microfiber cloth to clean your lens is very important. And a towel for yourself, because again, it's hot and sweaty, so you want to be comfortable. Sometimes you have to end up on the ground. So if you do have to end up on the ground for the angle, it's good to put under your knee or under yourself. So I always bring a towel with me as well. You do not need an expensive camera, but a camera that has a good dynamic range is helpful. So it's actually better to have cameras that have, how do I say it, lower megapixels. So the higher the megapixel, the smaller the pixels are, the less light they let in. And because you're shooting in environments that are essentially dark, the bigger the megapixels are, the more light they let in, the better exposure you're going to have. There are plenty of Google results on which cameras have the best dynamic range. But the good news is even cheap cameras are good enough for this. And maybe bring a friend. I hate doing this by myself because you will be bored there before the show for a while. So it's good to have somebody to hang out with. And, you know, sometimes I actually brought a friend who had to block a light in front of me. I will show you that. Oh, it's in this picture. So see that really bright light in this parking lot? Well, it was lighting the parking lot and I did not want it in my picture. And this was the best shot of the hotel and the fireworks were being lit over here. So I'm like, crap, what do I do? So I literally put my friend in front of me and I use his head to block that light to get this photo that the Biltmore Hotel bought for me for $500.
Clever.
Yes, I don't know. It's really hard to see because it is edited, but there is a bit of a halo over here. So there's some light spinning from that light, which was a little annoying. And I also couldn't get the whole hotel because of it. So how do you prepare beyond what you bring with you? So generally, shows are rare and fairly short. So you have to know where they are. You have to know what's there. You have to know how to get there. So you don't want to be late. You want to get there early. You want to walk around. You want to find a subject that will look good and ask around the folks who may have seen the show before. What's the best point to see it from? Where can you see it from, or where can't you see it from? Try to find a good spot and good subject. So I don't like photos of fireworks by themselves. I do take them sometimes, but it's very rare. So usually having something in the shot that's not the firework, I think adds a lot to the firework. And perhaps most importantly, you have to know how to operate your camera and its manual controls in complete or almost complete darkness. So get very familiar with where the buttons are, especially your shutter speed dial, your aperture dial, and how to change your ISO in the dark. I do have a very short video to show you. If I can find it. This one. So this, I randomly stumbled on one of my close friends from high school when I was photographing in Busch Gardens, and he was nice enough to take a video of me photographing the fireworks. So this is kind of fun.
Well, those are too low.
Oh no, it's not going high enough.
There will be though. This one will be.
There you go.
Oh yeah! Woo! We got one. I got a good one.
I don't think the rest of the show is important. Point is, so you saw me, I hold the button. I watch the firework go up. I trigger my release as soon as I watch the firework go up. I keep holding it until it does a full explosion and then I let it go. And I try to like do it before the next one comes in. Part of the technique to do it really well is you actually want to start the release anytime there's a dark spot. And it's better to photograph the early part of the show because the later in the show you get, the more fireworks that usually shoot up and the more likely you are to overexpose. So this is the photo, or one of the photos I got from that you saw my friend. I was standing in front of Iron Gwazi, got some of these lights and got the little bit of the roller coaster and the firework. So it varies what you get. I almost never Photoshop mine. I did not Photoshop this one, but I was tempted to because sometimes you do need to combine a couple of different shots to actually make it look its best. Usually I'm too lazy for that and I'm too much of a perfectionist. I want to get it right in the camera. But it is possible. I will show you some editing towards the end. All right, so can you photograph fireworks with a phone? Yes, sort of. Depends on the phone. Some phones today have a capability of recording raw images. Some later iPhones do, and some Samsungs do, and some others do as well. So if you are going to attempt to photograph fireworks with your phone, use the raw file format. Use the manual pro settings. use the lowest ISO available on your phone. On mine, I had to do about 4 seconds. That's all I could do. So I had to do the lowest ISO about 4 seconds. Anything longer was overexposed. You have to stabilize the phone. There are different ways of stabilizing the phone. The easiest, I'm gonna have to switch to my camera. I will show you. Give me 1 more second. I'll go back to my camera. Okay, the easiest way to stabilize the phone when you're traveling is a water bottle. You take a water bottle, you prop your phone with the camera facing out. It can be horizontal, it can be vertical. No tripod needed, nothing else needed. The water doesn't need to have water in the bottle. Otherwise, it's too light and it falls over. But this is exactly how I photographed the picture. I will show you one more time from the Sunfest Festival, because they don't allow you to bring anything else in. I could not bring my camera with me, and I really wanted to photograph their show, which they have stopped doing since then. So back to the slideshow. So this is the photo, one of the photos I took with my phone at the Sunfest music festival back when they used to do the fireworks show. It's nothing like my raw from my camera, but it's still cool. So if you're traveling, you don't have your camera with you, or just happen to catch a show, put a water bottle down, prop your phone up, take out beyond that, so set it to the lowest settings, ISO, all of those manual settings, 4 seconds. Stabilize it, prop it up with a water bottle, and you need a remote trigger or a timer, because otherwise you're shaking the phone. So on my phone, I'm not going to show you the other camera again, but I have a stylus. The Samsung Galaxy Notes come with a stylus, or the latest series of Ultras, Galaxy Ultras come with a stylus. The stylus, it's probably too small to see on camera, but it has a tiny little button on it. I don't know if you guys can see the button, but that button can trigger my camera release, which works like a remote camera release. Many smartwatches, my smartwatch, I'm not wearing it now, but my smartwatch also has a camera release button. And I think every phone has a timer on it. So you can say, okay, I'm going to press the button. It's going to be a 4-second delay, or 2-second delay, a 1-second delay before it actually takes the picture. So by that time, you set it down on the bottom, you press the button, there's a short delay, then it takes a picture for 4 seconds, and you're going to get something close to this. It will not look like this in the phone. It will probably look overexposed. That's why you need to shoot it raw. You will still need to bring it into your editing tools, such as Lightroom or similar, and you can still adjust it so it's not over, it actually looks balanced. So any questions on how to photograph a firework with a phone? Because it's going to get more complicated from there. Maybe less complicated. Okay, so how do you photograph a firework with a camera? I already mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. You have to stabilize the camera. Either you want to put some weight, well, either use a good solid tripod if you're not traveling far and you're driving. Put some, if you are using a light tripod, weigh it down with something like a bottle of water hanging in a bag, something along those lines. You can put the camera on the ground. The first time I went to the night garden in Fairchild Botanical Gardens in Miami, they did not allow me to bring a tripod because nobody was allowed to bring in a tripod. So I got creative. I found a spot that wasn't too crowded. I set my camera right on the ground. It was a little bit paved piece of the ground. I propped it, I don't even know with what, something that was in my bag. I threw something under the camera there just to prop it up. And then of course that wasn't the whole image. I had to crop it in. But this is what I got out of a camera. The first time I photographed fireworks at Disney, this is AI generated because I didn't take a picture of what my camera looked like, but it was sitting on top of a trash can, because at Disney, the trash cans have the side opening. So it was sitting right on top. I had my backpack on it. I had my sunglasses flipped upside down, again, to prop the camera up. And I was using the delayed shutter on the camera. So I'll press the button, in like a second or 2 seconds later, it will take like a 6 to 8 second picture. And that's what I got from my very first time I tried to photograph at Disney. I improved since then, but that's all I brought with me at the time. Now I can bring a better tripod. I have a remote trigger. If you are going to bring a tripod to Disney, there are rules, and they may have changed them, so do check for the latest rules. Last time I went, the only requirement was it has to fit in your bag. So if you're carrying a bag or a backpack, the tripod has to fully fit in it. It can't be hanging on it. It can't be sticking out of it. It has to fit in your bag, which is one of the reasons I have very compact travel tripods. You are not allowed to bring a selfie stick to Disney, so don't try. But tripod is okay, or you can get creative with their trash cans. Oh yeah, that's what I did. So, and once you point it up, you basically have to pray. Like you really can't control it that it's lined up correctly. It's going to be crooked. You can fix most of that in post. Shutter release. I showed you the one I traveled with. This is the one. This is a better picture of it. Remote trigger. It's ideal. You start as the fireworks begins going up. I love having the little tail or the trail of the firework that it travels. And then you stop it when the burst is complete. The most important thing for any firework photo, do not overexpose. So you kind of have to start, I usually start taking some photos before the fireworks to kind of get an idea of how long the ambient picture takes. And because I already know what my shutter speed is going to be, I already know what my approximately, and I know what my aperture is going to be. I will cover those shortly. Usually it's 6 to 8 seconds for an exposure. I've done longer ones, I've done shorter ones. My average is 6 to 8. So delayed shutter release is also okay, but it's kind of cumbersome and it can still shake your camera a little bit, and it can also accidentally move your alignment a little bit. So this is my favorite. And again, I like the wired one because A, it's cheap. This one I think is like $12, $13, $14 on eBay. And it plugs directly into my camera, and it has a little light up display that shows me the count. It also beeps every second. So even with the loud fireworks, if I hold it right next to my ear, I can count the number of beeps. So I literally go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I start paying attention to like what is a good time to stop the firework. It is completely okay, in fact, better to start the shot before the firework goes up. So the longer you able to open, like, so every time there's a bit of an empty space between fireworks, that's when you should start, because that's going to give you better lighting on your ambient. Because the fireworks is going to get really bright regardless. It's everything else that's so important to fill the shot with. So you want to give it as long of an exposure as possible. You can also do it at the end. If there ever is a gap between like a burst and nothing after it, you can linger and keep it open for like a good 5-10 seconds longer until the next burst go up. As soon as you see the next one go up, you let go. Or again, if you catch the beginning of an empty dead space, that's perfect. So those are usually the best shots I get. And they usually happen in the beginning of the show. Okay, let's talk about camera settings. So this is just a guide. It's a starting point. It has to be adjusted on the circumstances. But basically, most experts, some experts will tell you to start at ISO 100, f9, and 6 to 8 seconds. This is what I did for years. But there's a problem that I will demonstrate shortly with that. So after many, many tries and thousands of fireworks photos, I now prefer ISO 200, f14, and the manual shutter release still stays about 8 seconds, and I gamble slightly higher or as necessary. So why? Why did I change? The main thing is I like my subject to be sharp. I like the fireworks to be sharp. The subject is usually not right next to the fireworks. So the distance between the subject and firework bursts, trails, and having more control over what's in focus. So I'll show you an example. This is a photograph I took in West Palm Beach. This is not the real Eiffel Tower. This one lives in my kitchen. But I do own an Eiffel Tower, and I travel with it. I actually brought it with me to St. Louis, Missouri. Now, when I brought it to a fireworks competition in Missouri, this happened. Now, it's a pretty good shot. I actually like it a lot. But I really don't like the fact that the Eiffel Tower is very blurry. I'm okay with it being a little blurry. I'm not okay with it being this blurry, and there's nothing I can do. And then this one is the opposite. The tower is actually perfectly in focus, but the fireworks are actually fairly blurry. And it's also okay. I like it, but it's not perfect. It could be better. So both shots are very good, in my opinion. Both could be improved. So after I did this, I learned my lesson, and I realized I need to up my ISO, which is almost unheard of when shooting fireworks because everybody is afraid of overexposing, but also closing down my aperture to like f13, f14, and still having the same exposure time, because that's my aperture gives me, a little bit of extra flexibility there. So that's how I got there. How do you focus? Focusing is tricky. I personally use the back button focus on my camera. I think that's out of scope for today's discussion. If you don't know how to set it up, do ask in your, either when we are in person or in your focus groups. Like, so in our Nikon focus groups, we had a topic on that. It is very useful specifically for this, because once I do the focusing with my back button, it doesn't change until I do it again. You have two options for pre-focusing. You can pre-focus on the subject if you want the subject sharp, or you have to be a little bit faster and potentially sacrifice your first firework shot. But as soon as it starts going up, you can actually focus on the firework itself with the back button, and then don't change it until or unless you change your composition. So unless you zoom in or out, and then unfortunately you have to refocus again. So every time you change your zoom on your lens to change your composition, there's two problems you're going to have. A, you have to refocus. So essentially, you're going to miss a shot because you have to focus again if you're focusing on the firework, or you're going to potentially miss a shot because still, even if you're focusing on the subject, you still have to focus. So you lose some time on that. But also, you lose the possibility of then later merging your photos in Photoshop. So every time you change your composition, that first photo you should take before the firework show starts can only be used until you change your composition. And then at the very end, you should take another photo without any fireworks, perfectly exposed, low ISO, all that you can potentially blend in afterwards. But so that gets you two. But if you do more changes during the show, you can't really blend them very well, at least not with the empty shot. So there's that downside. And depending on how dark it is around you, when I did the competition, it was pitch black. There was nothing out there. You might need a flashlight to focus on the subject. Again, do not use a flashlight during a show. It blinds people. So only before, while you're setting up, not very bright one at that. So what's the opposite of bright? The dimmest one you can find is the best thing you can do. Okay. Photographing fireworks as a subject. Can you do it? Sure, of course. I only do it at competitions because when I go to competitions, they sometimes launch huge fireworks. They take out the whole sky from one shot. They're like 15-inch shells, 12-inch shells. They're like giant cannonballs that explode in all sorts of gorgeous stuff. Those are worthwhile photographing. They are very hard to catch. So the ideal scenario for this is having multiple cameras. And so you don't mess up your normal composition. You might have a second camera set up with a second tripod, or your friend who might know how to use photography and who might be taking their own photos with your camera, which is exactly what my ex-girlfriend used to do. So she was taking more photos with my camera, but when this was happening, I would just grab that camera and chase the firework and hope to get it in the frame. Don't get it too close zoomed in. Give yourself plenty of empty space. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've submitted one of these into our empty space, negative space competitions and lost. I'm not sure why I lost because I still love the picture, but the idea is there isn't an empty space around it because otherwise it will never fit in the shot. So you have to go fairly wide and then crop in on it when you still have to chase it in the sky because the thing is moving. And you don't know how high it's going to explode because there's only one of them. Speaking of it being one of them and not knowing how high they're going to explode. I usually start wide in the beginning of a show and adjust as necessary. For a good picture, generally, you don't want to crop the fireworks. Sometimes you have to. So I'm actually going to go back a few slides. All right. So one of the reasons these are not my favorite is I am cropping a whole bunch of fireworks over here and over here. And it is not, in my opinion, not ideal. So, they say, the rules and break the rules when you have to. So when we go to some of the earlier examples, I think this is a much better example of a picture of a firework where essentially the entire thing fits in the frame. This is my preference. This is what I would recommend, but sometimes it's unavoidable and you have to crop a little bit. If you can get the whole thing in, I do think it's better. So if I was rating the photos, the ones that have a complete firework in it, I think look better and would rank higher. All right, back forward. Are there other methods to photograph fireworks? Yes. I have failed at this one, primarily because maybe one of my buddies from my Nikon group can show me how to do this. But apparently on the newer Nikons, I can't figure out how to do a focus pull during a shot. The camera full on refuses to let me do it. Like I turn the wheel and it does not change the focus. It can let me do it before the shot, it can let me do it after the shot, but during the shot, it doesn't change the focus. I am sure somewhere in that camera there's a setting that will let me change the focus during the shot, but it's trying to make it easier, my life easier, right? And it's actually keeping the focus during the shot, which means I can't do this. Older lenses is very easy with older lenses. This is only an issue for me with the newer cameras and newer lenses. On an older lens, you just do the manual focus and you turn the wheel. I love how these look. They look like kind of like abstract flowers. These are the two people who are known for having, they do a lot of it, they sell them. I certainly don't want to take credit. So these are not mine. They're for Forrest and Sandra. They're probably the best around at doing these focus pull fireworks. And one day I will get one that looks like it. The sad thing is, if you try to do this during a show, you basically will not get anything else during a show. You kind because you kind of have to pick and choose. So one of the days I will sacrifice a show to actually do this and only do this and get some of these, but I won't get anything else. All right, I'll tell you some shows where you can, there's some places that have daily shows. So if you end up in one of those, it's certainly not a bad idea to sacrifice one to experiment. All right, let's talk about editing. Well, first, before we talk about editing, does anybody have any questions on what I covered so far?
Can you explain the focus pull again, if you could do it correctly?
Yes. So the foundation of a focus pull is very simple. You start either focused on where the firework is, and during the explosion, you actually take the focus ring on the lens and you slowly turn it. So if your exposure is 6 seconds, during that 6 seconds, you just go and turn it. Or you do the opposite. But if you do the opposite, you have to start unfocused, and you have to know where the focus is. So you have to first pre-focus, mark it somehow, or know by feel where it is. Then you defocus it on purpose, and then you bring it back in focus during the shot. That's hard to do, but subjectively creates better flowers, if you can call them flowers or whatever they are. Experiment, easiest way to do it with an older lens. If you have an older lens that has manual focus and the camera doesn't do anything with its focus, that's the easiest way to do it. If you have a new camera, find a way to turn off the thing that keeps it in focus during the shot, which I haven't yet. And if I do, I'll let you know. Okay, so let's start. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so let's say you went to a fireworks show and you followed all of my suggestions so far, and you look in your camera and you get this, and it just looks horrible. This happened to me last year. You'd think after doing this for 10 years, I would be pretty good at it. I almost cried after driving to St. Augustine for 4.5 hours or so, walking from my hotel to the show for about an hour, waiting there for about 3 hours after scoping out my spot, finally finding a perfect spot, chilling in it for like another 1.5 hours, and taking, this was one of the first few pictures I took, and almost crying. I'm like, WTF. So there are actually lights over here that were supposed to be lighting the castle, and within 2 seconds of the show, they turn the lights off.
Oh.
So unlike a Disney castle, which has projections on it and is very well lit, the St. Augustine Castile, I forget what, de San Marcos, Castillo de San Marcos, I think it's called, was decently lit, but they turned it off. So I was lucky that across the street, way on the other side, there was one large red light. Now, the beauty of light is, if you have a long exposure, no matter how far the light is, eventually it will actually expose what you're trying to expose. So I took this picture, and this is straight out of camera. This is what it looked like. I was very disappointed. It was shot raw. I did not overexpose. None of those spots that look overexposed are actually overexposed. I will show you the histogram. I already did mention the lower megapixels are generally better for this or anything at night. The only caveat to that, it's some cameras have extra dynamic range. So they might still be high megapixel camera, but with very good dynamic range. They can do this better. Generally, some of those are video-centered cameras because they actually have a lower or higher, like 800 native ISO. So there's all that stuff. But generally speaking, if you have a camera that has a lower megapixel, it's actually better to use for fireworks. So dynamic range does matter. If you can't afford any camera you want and you want to do this, do research which cameras have the best dynamic range. The Nikon Z6 series are particularly known to being very good at this. So Z6 II, Z6 III, even Z6 without the I guess one. And before that, the D750 was like the king of this before the Z series came out. I am certain there are similar Sonys. In fact, there's a better Sony that has, I think, 12 megapixels that would outperform the Nikons. So my Nikons are in like top 5, but they're not the best for this. So I will actually show you how to do this. All right, so let's go into Lightroom. And this is the shot. This is what the histogram looks like. This is not what you usually want your histogram to look like, but this is exactly what you want your histogram to look like, at least on the right side when you're shooting fireworks. Nothing should be clipped. So like I was saying, there is no spike over here on the right side that would tell me that it's actually clipped. So we have the benefit of being able to make an edit. So I do have some presets I usually use. So normally I would actually start with a preset, but for you guys, I will go from the beginning. The first thing I would do is I would click on the exposure. Why do you click on the exposure as opposed to just drag it? Is so that you can use the plus and minus keys on your keyboard. So once you click on any setting for that matter, you can then use the plus and minus. So now I'm tapping on my keyboard and I go, if I hold it, it goes faster. So if I just hold it, it just increments. And now I'm overexposed. So I'm going to stop at about 250. So now it does look overexposed, but we can fix that. Before we fix that, I almost always put contrast at 19. I don't know why. It looks good to me from my camera. This is camera specific. I like how it looks from my Nikon cameras at contrast 19. It looks just right to me. This is completely subjective. Highlights. Highlights usually will go very low. Try not to hit negative 100 because then it does almost too much to the image. But something in this case, negative 94 is what I ended up picking. That brought all of these back. So again, nothing is clipped, right? So nothing is clipped on the right. We go down, we're going to bring up some shadows. The shadows look very dark, but there's magic of Lightroom and high dynamic range. Boom, much brighter. Brought up all the shadows. We're gonna now play a little bit more with the whites and the blacks. I did not like the whites in the firework, in the core of the fireworks. I brought that down to a negative 44. It just dimmed a little bit more in the body of the firework. And then it looked a little muddy to me. So I actually took the blacks down too, which sometimes isn't necessary, and I don't often do it, but it seemed right for this picture. It does clip a little the blacks, but frankly, the part of the clips, I don't particularly care. It's like over here. So I didn't much care about clipping those. All right, next, another one of my favorite settings. You almost always I put clarity at 19. Again, this is a personal subjective choice. Vibrance, for this one, I went with 17. I was eyeballing it. I actually skipped one thing over here. I skipped the white balance. And in this particular case, I went with auto. Auto got me 2850 and I liked it. I will usually manually pick the white balance and then just play with it. So you can actually play with it a lot and it will adjust the image significantly, both, you know, on the top and the bottom. But when I did the auto, I really liked it for this particular shot. So it worked out pretty well. And then finally, I add a little bit of saturation. You never want to oversaturate your image. So 10 was completely sufficient for me. Maybe 5 would have been too. Now there's there's 2 problems left with this image for me. It's not an 8x10, so I can't submit it to our competitions. So we have to fix that. We're gonna crop it. Why am I blanking? For a second, I lost all my tools. I know the keyboard shortcut for crop is R, but I lost somewhere over here. There's a crop tool. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there. So usually I just hit R, and I will set this to 8x10. I will adjust it a little bit to get whatever that weird looking thing on the side is. Now I did like the little bit of an S curve over here. And as I said before, I hate cropping the top of a firework. So I fit enough of the firework into the frame while getting rid of the funky stuff on the bottom and completely useless grass in the front, keeping a little bit of my S curve. And that's, I think, where I stopped. There is one small problem left, and that it could be ignored. And the last problem is there's a bit of a distortion. So I actually went into the guided alignment, and I drew two lines. I already drew them, so they're already there. But basically, I drew a line that was straight on that tower, and I drew a line that a line that was straight on this tower, and it kind of smooshed it a little bit. After which, I think I have to recrop it just a tiny bit because now I'm I lost a piece of it. But that was basically. So this is what I just edited now, and this is what I edited before. I cropped it a little bit tighter now. Fine. So I was very happy. But moral of the story is, this is what I started with that made me almost cry and abandon the show. And this is what you can get to in like literally a minute after dragging some sliders around in Lightroom. And if you have presets and you click on that preset, I mean, you're talking seconds. There is another talk I should probably do one day, how to do stuff faster in Lightroom, because I have a controller that looks like this. It's actually meant for music. It's a MIDI controller. I don't know how close can you guys see anything written? I'm doing it upside down anyways. There are labels on top of there. Those labels correspond to all the sliders in Lightroom. So I've customized every button on here. So when I turn these knobs, it's like my brightest, contrast, saturation, all of those things. I can just adjust right on here instead of having to deal with the sliders. And it's a faster workflow. It does require quite a bit of setup. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you want to spend a day tinkering with stuff, but it is fun. And after that, it does speed up how you do these things. Any questions on the edit?
Brilliant.
Pretty is right.
Brilliant. Good, brilliant. This is why I'm going to retire from photography.
Okay, a few more slides. We're actually doing great on time, I think. So, there are other techniques similar or other uses of a similar technique. I very much enjoy doing car trails. Nothing changes from your setup. You still need a tripod, you still need to stabilize the camera, you still need to do the proper focusing. You ideally need either a delayed shutter or a remote trigger. All of the other factors fall into place. Essentially, the cars become the fireworks, and they add the motion to the shot that makes that shot unique. Of course, getting like 3 of the main landmarks in Barcelona doesn't hurt either. But I don't think the shot looks as good without the car trails. So essentially the same. Light painting. Has anybody here done light painting?
Yes.
It is fun. It is hard. You usually get eaten up by mosquitoes. And if you want really cool lights, you invest in some cool lights, which I haven't yet. Arthur, I think the other author, from the Boy Photo Club, has a huge collection of lights. I actually did his workshop once. It's fun. It's something to try. Essentially, you create your own light patterns, and you can do some magical stuff with that. So it's a topic for another day. But as far as what you do in the camera is exactly the same. You pre-focus, you have a long exposure, etc. When do you photograph and where do you photograph fireworks? Disney, nightly. Apparently there's some rumors that they might stop in 5 years and completely switch to drone shows. So if you actually want to take some pictures of fireworks at Disney, I would say go in the next 5 years. After that, there's no guarantee it would still be there. if you're willing to brave the crowds on New Year's Eve at Disney, they do 12 simultaneous displays, so you can pretty much be anywhere and do this. Busch Gardens doesn't do it every night, but they do it seasonally for several nights. So like around July 4th, I think there's like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks that they still do it every night. You just have to know and you have to look it up. So Busch Gardens, SeaWorld do it seasonally. Of course, July 4th, it's all over the place. On New Year's Eve, it's all over the place. Niagara Falls does it nightly during the summer. You can look up the dates online, but only 5-minute shows. So the Niagara Falls shows are very short. And if you're gonna go, reach out to me directly. I will help you pick the right spots. I've now done it from 4 different locations, and I do have my favorites. If money is no object, there's one I didn't do, but I kind of wish. There's a balcony that overlooks both falls. It's a corner balcony in the Hilton Hotel over there. And it's some ridiculous amount of money per night, but you would get a better photo than I have so far. There are a bunch of firework competitions. I've been to this one, the Sky Wars one. It's in Missouri. It's near St. Louis, but it's actually in a city called Innsbruck. I am going to the one in Montreal in July. They will start on July 1st is their Freedom Day or Canada Day, whatever it's called. It's similar to our July 4th. And then there's an international fireworks festival following it every Thursday and Sunday for a month. So if you want to hang out in Montreal, I'm only going to go for a week and get 2 of those shows plus the Canada Day one. But if you guys want to hang out in Montreal, you will see, I think, 8 shows from different countries. They're all going to be incredible. I've seen videos. Vancouver also does a huge competition called Celebration of Light. And there's one more. Oh my God, I had it open. Yeah, right here. So if you do search for it on Google, there's a Wikipedia page that comes up and it lists a whole bunch of them that you can go to. Most of them are not in America. There's only a handful, I think maybe 2 in America, maybe even 1. But there are some, Canada has a bunch, Mexico has one, and there's some other ones internationally as well. So that's basically the presentation. For those of you who have joined late, I will play a slideshow one more time with my favorite fireworks song. So this concludes the fireworks presentation. You're welcome to follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Like my videos, please. And let's schedule more workshops. You guys have already seen my 10 Minutes Better Portraits one. But I've made some modifications to it, and we can certainly get more advanced with that one. So any questions before I go back to the slideshow?
Roman, it was wonderful.
It was.
You set us on fire.
Yeah, really great.
Wow.
Wow. Well, I hope you guys
well
enjoyed it. Let me find, oops, the music track for this.
Roman, what do you do at the end when it gets so gassy that you really can't even see the fireworks anymore?
Good question. So it depends on the wind. Sometimes it doesn't. But when I went to the competition, I had regretted not bringing my COVID masks with me. So if you still have a bunch of those laying around, it's not a bad idea to wear those N whatever they were masks. They will definitely protect you.
But doesn't that affect the photograph?
I'm sorry?
At the end, doesn't it affect the photograph when you take it at the end?
Wait, hold on. Say your question again.
The gases that accumulate, like what you can see there, it affects the fireworks.
The smoke.
I think it helps, honestly. Like you kind of embrace it. I think it makes them more unique, but it really does depend on the direction of the air. So sometimes you get lucky and it actually brings it in a direction where it looks prettier. I think I had one in St. Augustine. Do I have it in this series? No, okay, I'll show you the other slideshow. In this slideshow, I don't know if I can skip. There's no easy skip forward on this one. I'm gonna skip, try to get there. Okay, well, first Niagara Falls one. So in Niagara Falls, it was definitely traveling. And I enjoyed how it moved around.
Mhm.
So I actually think it added to some photos. It gave some texture here. Instead of having like a completely dark sky. So like here it helped. And then yeah, this is the one I'm gonna pause on this one. This is the one that looks magical to me. This looks like Northern Lights in Florida, right? So because it's the firework reflecting through the smoke and the wind is blowing just the right way at that time. But the winds change, all that change, like the photo before it and the photo after, it doesn't look that way. That's the magic of fireworks and photographing fireworks, because nothing will ever look the same. Like this whole series, right? They're all photographed from the same spot. That's the one you already saw earlier. But look how different each one of them looks. There's nothing in common. Now, well, the Castile is the San Marcos is uncommon, right? But the fireworks, they make every shot look completely different. Sometimes you get lucky and you catch some random stranger standing there. I think there's one that I have like the one guy or two people just watching the show, and I'm sad that it's not as good of a fireworks shot. And frankly, I'm too lazy to go back into Photoshop and take one of the other shots and like crop this out and put the other one in. I think it would be a much better photo, and maybe I will do it, but I wasn't like, that's time, significant time. This takes me like 30 seconds per photo. So sometimes if I really have the motivation and the time, I will go back and do some Photoshop. The only photo in this whole list that I actually Photoshopped was a Niagara Falls wide one. This one, I will tell you guys a secret. I did have one that had the trail. Like I love it when you can see the whole trail of the firework. But then there was two problems with that one. It was a little bit what I would call naked. There wasn't enough of it. And I had another shot almost identical to, they had these come out of it. So those are Photoshop from another shot. And there was a third shot that had some more color come from here, the red and the blues. And I really liked that one. So I also added that one. This is literally the only fireworks photo I Photoshopped. The rest of mine are, they're edited in Lightroom, but they're not Photoshopped. They're not blended in multiple shots. So they're real. This one, I feel like I cheated a little bit, but it wasn't completely cheating because they were kind of back to back and they sort of look that way anyway. So it still looks real to me. But yeah,
What did
that's
you do
basically
with
it.
the Eiffel, oh, I'm sorry, what did you do with the Eiffel Tower? How did you put that in the shots?
How did I put it in where?
In the pictures that have the Eiffel Tower? How
I
did,
actually own one. I literally own one.
I know, but how did you put it in? What did you do with it?
How did you position it?
Position it right there? Did you put it in it? I mean, how did it?
So okay, no, I wonder if I have. I don't think I have the making of that one.
Maybe it's a
I'll
long
try to
trip.
let me first find one, and then I'll explain it.
Use a big trailer truck.
Where's the Tar one? Okay, here's some. So these ones are sitting on. So these ones were in St. Louis, Missouri. I actually went to Walmart. I bought two tables, folding tables, which I dragged along with me. One of them was a round table with a lip, which allowed me to put some water into it and photograph it as it was a lake with a reflection. Because the whole firework thing there's absolutely nothing around. There is no subject. So I'm like, I again don't think a firework by itself is that exciting. It's beautiful, but it's not beautiful enough. It's like jewelry. Like, yeah, can you photograph jewelry by itself? Yes, but it's better when a beautiful woman is wearing it. So I tried to do a fake lake, which hasn't won any of our competitions, but I thought it was cool, and it's somewhere in here, but I don't see it. So I did the fake lake on the table, it just poured some water in the lip. And then on the second table, I put the Eiffel Tower, and I actually went to a dog store and bought one of those fake pieces of grass. I don't even know what it's called, just to make it look like there was lawn. Now, before that, I had to crop, and I still cropped in some of the shots, but I did have some shots that this one doesn't show it well, but I did have some shots that looked more realistic with the green. So it looked like it was more like potentially the real Eiffel Tower, because in this one you see the people, so you know it's not real. But I was playing around with it a lot. Never quite had a perfect one. The one from Palm Beach I actually think was the best. But I didn't like the focus, and I haven't had a chance to redo it since I adjusted my technique. So I kind of want to do it again. I don't think I'm going to bring it to Montreal with me though. I'm going to in Montreal they have a theme park right next to where the fireworks are. So I think I'm going to get some roller coasters, And they also, there's like a beautiful bridge, or maybe not beautiful, but there's a bridge. So I'm gonna get some pictures of the bridge and some pictures with the roller coasters, I think. And hopefully there'll be enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Does anyone else have any questions?
Roman, can you hear me?
yes.
Can you slide? It's probably about half a dozen pictures. There's one image that I find unique. Keep going. It's a little ways. A little more, a little more. You're getting close.
All right.
It was a Disney shot, which
Okay.
I've never seen, and I'm curious how you did it.
So I'll tell you one thing while I'm on this one. So there's a problem with this shot. Well, first of all, there's a crowd. There's always going to be a crowd. So the higher you can get your tripod, the better. There's also, if you've done it a few times, you will know the timing of how they do the shows, because usually no matter where you line up, they will push you further in. And it's really hard to refuse that because there's a whole crowd behind you.
Yep.
So you're almost better off not like being all the way where you want to be, but being a little bit further back, knowing that you're going to get pushed forward, or camping out with a trash can and just kind of staying locked to it, is which I did once. But in this shot, so I like this shot a lot. It's a beautiful shot. And there is Disney in it, which unfortunately has no light on him. And there is Mickey, which unfortunately is mostly cropped. But the biggest problem I see with the shot is Disney is pointing out of the photo. And my dream is to go back and position myself to the more to the left, so that the Disney would actually end up on the right side pointing into the photo, and hopefully find a way to not get Mickey cropped because of the crowd. I might even take, they do have like part-time jobs during holidays, so I might even take like a part-time 2-week job so I can get a Disney badge as a photographer, not so I can make some money, but so I can get all access and go into the areas where like normal people can't go. Because at the last professional photographers meeting, Jane went with me. We met the guy who does fancy weddings at Disney. So I think now at least I have a way or somebody to reach out to say, hey man, can you hook me up with a pass or something? Like get me a photographer badge. Maybe I don't actually have to work there for 2 weeks. Maybe or even if I do, I think he would be able to get me like a temporary job just so that I can get the shot that I want.
Roman, look at the picture just below Walt on that where you just had it before.
What I click on?
It was just up there.
This
It's
one? No.
Down on the to the right. Yes, this one that's lit.
Okay. This one is
No, I'm sorry, that's not it. It's the fourth one from the left.
this one?
Yes.
Okay, so this is
How'd you
also
do
one
it?
of my very first. This is from my first trip. This is just partly lucky. This is when the camera is sitting on the trash can with my backpack, with my sunglasses upside down, pointing up with a delayed shutter release because I didn't have a remote shutter release, and basically just pointing at the castle and getting some explosions happening. There are plenty of people below that are cropped, and I was lucky enough to get a person who was wearing the Mickey hat. So now I got some Mickey ears in here, which I think makes the shot.
But the exposure was the same. That was still 6 to 8 seconds, only because the rays look so unique.
I would bet anything it was 6 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
I can look it up at some point if you need me to. But yeah, because this is before I had a remote trigger. So basically I would press the shutter release, and a second later it would just take a picture. And I think that picture was either 6 or 8 seconds. That's all I was playing with at the time. Yeah, there was a bunch of, oddly enough, some of these were from my first, this is from my second trip, but some of my favorite ones are still from the first time I tried it, before I had the best equipment, before I had all the gadgets to do it right, before I had a tripod with me. So that kind of goes to reinforce that you can get a little bit lucky and use what you have around with you and still make it happen.
And what's the focal length of the lenses that you use?
Great question. I didn't even no, I think I may have said at some point that I start wide. So you don't need a great lens. There is one shot I'll show you that I did get a longer zoom. So usually I start wide, and by wide I mean about 24 probably millimeters on a full frame camera. And then I need to give myself room to crop. So always, especially at Disney, give yourself plenty of room to crop. I wouldn't go too much wider because you have to still adjust. Again, these are the last setting I showed you in Lightroom. this and the upright one, all the Disney ones they are applied to. That's why the castle actually looks correct. They all have geometry shifted, but in order because in the original it's all crooked. So I have to do this, but in order to do this, you also lose a huge chunk of the picture. So you want to shoot much wider just so that you can adjust for geometry and still have enough room to crop for our 8x10s. Fun fact, none of mine Niagara Falls ones are 8x10s because they just don't fit. It's just too much to get the firework in the city and the waterfalls. So I gave up and I just shot wide for those. This is a shot I actually shot from across the lake. To get this shot, you do not have to pay Disney. It's a free shot. You can literally pull. Sorry, was somebody asking a question? No. For this one, you can pull up to their parking lot where they have the little ferries that take you there, and you don't go on a ferry. You just stay in the parking lot. You use a longer zoom. I think I used 200 on this. May have been 400, but I'm pretty sure it was 200. And then you just kind of get the whole thing. In the original, in my wider version, all the fireworks do fit. And of course, for our 8x10s, I had to crop a little bit. And then you get some of the lake and the beautiful reflections in the lake. I also didn't say, it is very often I will shoot both horizontal and vertical. It is hard to go from horizontal to vertical on some heads, especially heads like this little tiny thing. It is kind of a pain in the rear. There's like a little lever over here. It's very hard. It's unreliable, and I hate doing it. So I avoid it when I can, or I do it before the show so I can tighten everything up very well. I don't recommend switching, but sometimes you have no choice. When I did the fireworks at Miami, I was prepared to shoot one way. And then when they fired the fireworks, I was like, oh crap, they're over here, not over here. And it happened to me in Chicago too. Like I was sitting there, I was expecting them in one place. And then sometimes the barges move. Even in St. Augustine, when I was talking to all the regulars there, they're like every year the barges are in a different place. And they adjust for which way the wind is blowing. So which way the debris is going to go. So they actually move. So you plan and you plan and you plan and then crap. Disney doesn't move. It's always there. So that's probably a good place to start. Niagara Falls, same thing. They always do it the same place. But some places when they shoot it off the barges, they can just move the barge and you would be all set up and then you have to adjust. Any other questions?
They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Piero Papner Italiano.
Well done, Roman. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
everyone should know that it's been,
I should show the first slide one more time. The first slide of the presentation.
Nice.
Because the first slide of the presentation, for those of you who joined late, has my contact info, but also has the link to the slideshow. So you really don't need to take pictures of the rest of the slides. They are available if you go to that URL. They're copyrighted by me. So please use them for your own benefit and nobody else's. Do not resell them, do not repurpose them, do not reshare them. But for you, you're welcome to use them.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Roman. That was really super.
Wonderful, Roman. Your explanation was just as good as your pictures were the best I've seen.
You did a great job.